how that can be really helpful in a time of a disaster.
So we were actually the beneficiaries of someone making that plan in advance to have that group of people that they were going to call. And that she saved my life that day. So absolutely having that network really saved lives.
Find your five. The idea is that, find trusted allies that can be there and can be responsive and will check in with you if a disaster were to happen.
So we recommend that you put people in your network that are down the street, that are maybe the next town over, that are outside the county, and maybe even outside the state.
The final tier of the Ready, Set, Go is that go piece, and it's simply that, it's go. Evacuation information comes in two types. The first type could be an evacuation warning. This is essentially information that we're going to push out to the public, notifying them of a potential threat in their area where they may have to evacuate their home. An evacuation order is essentially that. We are telling people that it's time to go. There is an imminent threat to life, and we do not believe that you have much time to leave the area.
Code Red is a opt-in alerting system that will dial your number. It'll send you a phone call, a text message, and an email notifying you of an emergency. That message is sent from our office, the Office of Emergency Services. It's going to be very targeted to your area, and it'll be specific to you.
At 5:13, the phone rang with the Code Red call. And so as I was going up 49, I could look over to the left and see the flames in the canyon.
The next layer is for staff to actually be out driving in the areas with a high-low siren. There's no other reason you'll hear that in an area unless we're putting out that evacuation order, not a warning, but an order.
My day started routine patrol, came in and I was notified by dispatch to respond out to the Jones fire. Houses that had evacuation tags made it so we could just pass by. We knew that the residents had already been evacuated. Residences that did not have the tags, we would have to physically go in, knock on the door, look in the windows, make sure there were no occupants inside.
Once you've been evacuated, as you're leaving, put this tag somewhere very, clearly identifiable, whether it's a mailbox, a gate, your address marker, so that deputies and officers can quickly identify if your residence has already been evacuated.
I mean, you look out my back window here on the east side, and you see how close this fire came. It was certainly a shock, and at the same time, it was such an incredible relief to have the house as safe as it was.
I think with personal preparedness and being ready, it can feel overwhelming. It can feel like a lot to do, and the most important piece is to just start with one little bite at a time.
Just start the conversation. Have some sort of plan. It can be as small as a meetup place, a destination that everybody will get to, everybody in the household will get to if there's a disaster.
Recognize you live in a community, in a county, that really does take the emergency response as a priority. We have worked diligently throughout the last few years on ensuring that not only our staff are trained and prepared, but we're also putting that out for our community. The more prepared you are in your own community, the better the outcome is going to be.
The level of community awareness, they have to be part of the solution. They have to communicate with their neighbors. They have to be part of the discussion in communities. They have to support the response, the prevention, the education, and ultimately the collaboration and the engagement. People have to be engaged at all levels.
The more you think about it now, the easier it will be when the time comes that you need to evacuate.
We've created this network, and we want you to make sure that you know that you can tap into that. So if you are feeling a little bit overwhelmed, not sure where to start, reach out to one of our offices, reach out to the Fire Safe Council or 211. We're here to support you.
From the foothills of the Sierra Nevada, a new hero will emerge.
So, good everybody. Thank you so much for coming out on a cold, rainy, potentially snowy in a few hours evening. We'll get you out of here before it starts snowing. I'm Lisa Swarthout. I'm the District 3 County Supervisor. I represent the City of Grass Valley and surrounding areas, just so you get a placement of where District 3 is. So back in January, the board does their 3 days of public workshops to determine the work that we're going to be doing in the county this year and for years to come. And one of the issues that came up was the potential for putting together an ordinance for cell phone towers. So typically the process works where we give direction to the Planning Commission. They put together an ordinance, and the first round that you get as a public is to come and get your 3 minutes at the Planning Commission meeting. This is a little different from our typical county process because I think it's really important for all of us to listen to the community about what they would like to see in this ordinance. So this evening, you're going to hear a presentation from our staff about what the current ordinance is and also about what the county has the ability to regulate when it comes to cell phone towers. Cell phone towers are very heavily regulated by the federal government. And so we are looking for input to figure out how to put the best ordinance together with public input. So you're going to hear our staff make a presentation, and then there's going to be opportunity for questions and comments. They'll all be recorded, and as the staff moves forward to work on the ordinance, it will eventually come to the Planning Commission. And I know there potentially is going to be some questions this evening that we cannot answer, so please be patient with us. We will let you know about those. We will get the answers, and we'll get a way to get those answers to all of you who are here this evening. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Lori Burkhardt-Frank, who's going to be our facilitator this evening. She's probably going to be passing the mic around for people to answer questions. And I'll be around at the end of the evening, too, if you have any additional questions for me. So, Lori.
Thank you, Supervisor Swarthout. Yes, thank you very much. So yes, as Supervisor Swarthout said, this is an opportunity to hear what you have to say after we have a presentation. And I just did an outline of what we're expecting the timeline to be. So it's a welcome to all of you that came out in the rain and the cold to share your thoughts. Then there's a presentation that'll be about 20 minutes. And then after the presentation, I'm going to just do a quick survey to find out approximately how many people are planning to speak, because we have 60 minutes. We want everybody who has something to say to get the opportunity, so that will inform us whether we have 3 minutes or a little less than that per person. I can record the themes if they're, and I was talking to some folks in the audience. perhaps if people are communicating the similar themes, it makes more sense to have people with other themes come up as well. But again, everybody who's here will figure out a way to adjust the time so people can speak. The other thing I wanted to let you know is at the back, there is a sign-up sheet. If you want to put your name and your email address, then you will get on a list to have updates come to you. Also, there's these little sheets with David, who's going to be up here in a moment to give you a presentation, with his email, and you can always email him any written comments that will be part of the permanent public record. So talking to somebody else earlier, if you feel like you don't have enough time to say everything you want and you have it written, you can just send the email to this address. And that's at the back. I've got a few up here. And we also welcome the folks on YouTube that are listening to this, and they can also email David Nicholas at nevadacounty.gov, and that is going to be, your email is going to be on the presentation. So, all right, I think that's all I have for now, and I'm going to invite David Nicholas, who is the planner for this project, and then Brian Foss, who is the director of planning.
Thanks, Laura. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I won't repeat everything that's been said, but that's kind of the purpose of our meeting. David is an associate planner with our office, and go through a little presentation about our existing ordinance. We do have an ordinance, but as you may have read in the notice for this meeting, it's about over 20 years old. Been a lot of changes in technology and a lot of different things happening in the county. So time to update the ordinance. We're going to give a brief presentation regarding what the existing ordinance is, some thoughts and some issue areas that we are anticipating making changes to. And then, of course, the purpose of the meeting is to hear from all of you as much as possible, provide comments. We'll do our best to answer any questions, but this is step one of the process. So we don't have anything drafted yet. We haven't, we don't have decision makers here. We're not at a decision-making point. So really just information gathering, comment gathering at this point in time. I'll turn it over to David, and he'll walk you through a few slides.
All right, thanks, Brian. Thanks, everyone, for coming out here today. My name is David Nicholas. I'm the project planner for this modification to our cell tower ordinance that's in the works. So there's like the previous speaker said, we've got three purposes for this meeting today. First, we're going to be providing some information about what some of the potential modifications would be. Then we're going to listen to your input about those modifications, hear your thoughts on things that can change, things that you guys want to change. And then next, we'll be developing that ordinance to address your comments and also adopt that ordinance in a way that's in compliance with the federal standards we have to adhere to. So in regard to those federal standards we're trying to adhere to and what we have to adhere to is there's limitations on how we can regulate towers based off of RF frequency. So if a tower is proposed and it's going to be in alignment with FCC standards for radio frequency emissions, we can't regulate the location of it based only on that. So we have to take that into account when doing our ordinance. In addition to that, the federal government also has shot clock requirements, which is a timeline that we have to follow when we process these applications. So we can't just let something sit for a year. We actually have to be making progress on it, or else it's called deemed complete, where they, we can talk to the lawyer a little bit more about that, but we want to avoid it. We want to make sure we're following the process. But even though there are some restrictions that the federal government has on the local county, there's a few proposed ideas that we're looking into to address some of these public comments we've heard in the past about concerns to radio frequency. So some of those things are that when we first have a cell tower that's proposed, we make sure that there is a radio frequency engineer or electrical engineer that's providing some information about that this tower is estimated to not exceed the Federal Communications Commission standards. But what we are potentially looking into adding is requirements for actual post-installation certifications to make sure once that tower is installed or once the tower is modified, we can actually see that it's meeting those standards it was supposed to meet. In addition to that, another potential thing we're looking into adding would be record-keeping requirements, so we can see that record of compliance with those FCC standards that it has to adhere to. So these next couple slides are some other proposed modification. Some of it's just like some simple cleanup. We're looking to clarify some of the definitions of the county code with the current FCC standards, just to get rid of any confusion out there. Like everyone said, that ordinance is 20 years old, so there's definitely some opportunity just for some alignment with definitions. Like I said before, incorporating some of the shot clock timelines into the code just for clarification purposes, adding permitting processes for smaller, not as impactful towers to be reviewed administratively, and adding some flexibility for emergency deployments for cells on wheels and emergency generators in a circumstance where it's actually like a declared federal emergency or a declared state emergency. We'd also like to clarify the interpretation of effectively unnoticeable. We want it to be it's a little vague right now, so we want it to be clarified because it hasn't historically been applied as invisible, and we're looking for some sort of way to clean that up a little bit, whether that's camouflaged, and we can clarify that more based off of the feedback that you guys can provide today and based off of the multiple public comment periods. For some of the larger, more controversial towers, another potential change we've considered would be to change the hearing body from the zoning administrator to the planning commission. And the final item on this slide is that we heard a lot of people concerned that they weren't notified of a cell tower that's going to be proposed to be installed close to them. So the potential change would be to increase the range of the CEQA notice and the notice of public hearing from what's currently 300 to 500 feet up to 1,000 feet. So some more potential ideas that we're considering for this would be making the application just a little bit more stringent. We still want to facilitate cell towers in the county, make sure everyone has that emergency access, ability to call in 911 if they need to. But some of the things we're considering would be a clarification of the visual impact the tower will have. We're looking for some clarification of why a site was chosen, the technical reason for the height, and the alternative sites that were also evaluated, so we know why a tower has to be in a specific location. And finally, before the cell tower representative even submits their application to the county, we're potentially going to require that they notify all parcel owners within 1,000 feet, so that way everyone's brought into the process even before the county knows, so as early as possible. Another potential modification would be to add some cell tower maintenance requirements, just so that the cell towers can't dilapidate, and there's some codified authority to make sure it's maintained in that state it was approved as. Another potential idea would be to add activities that are exempt from permitting. Some of these things would be a clarification of tasks that are already exempt pursuant to state and federal law, but also lower impact things like small cell wireless facilities or eligible facilities requests. And the final modification idea that we have, just a potential idea, would be to increase the setback required for cell towers. So currently the cell towers have a 100% setback, and we're looking into the idea of a 150% setback. So on these following slides, we're kind of break down why that 150-foot setback is, the main idea we're considering for this. And so I usually represent that as a 250-foot setback, which is about what 150% setback would be of a 170-foot tall tower. One of the things I want to point out with this is these are coverage maps of a proposed tower that was going to go in by Dog Bar Road. And the reason it's informative is to show that the range of those towers is actually fairly limited. The low band, which is like voice, is shown over on figure 5 on the left. So that range of that's about a mile and a half to about 2.5 miles. And figure 8 on the right is the mid band, like the data. And that's only about 0.5 mile to 1.5 miles, and it gets spotty. So to have adequate cell coverage, the cell towers do have to be close to where the people are so it can be within range of all the cell phones. But if we do a 500 or 1,000 foot setback, it substantially limits the number of parcels that would be eligible for any cell towers. And we can see that in this following slide right here. Most of these colored parcels over on the eastern part of the county, those are larger like SPI or United States Forest Service parcels, and they're farther away from a lot of the population centers around like 49 and 174 and 20. And we can see it broke down further in this table, where if you look at all the parcels in Nevada County, there's about 64,000 parcels. And if we do a 250-foot setback, that leaves about 12% of the parcels. If you increase that setback to 500 feet, it's about 4% of the parcels. And by the time you're at a 1,000-foot setback, it's about 1.23% of the parcels. And the challenge that makes it even more restrictive than this is just a simple analysis. It doesn't even account for zoning or topography or the existing cell network or whether there's a river there. So it may even be more restrictive than that. And we can see this represented a little more visually. I know that previous big county map was a little hard to see the detail on, so this is kind of a zoom in of Penn Valley. We've got a few other ones. We've got the Penn Valley, Grass Valley, and South County that I'll pull up. And we can see that based off of the different colors, those would be the space available for a tower based off of the different setbacks. So if we have a 1,000-foot setback, the towers could only exist in the yellow area. If we have a 500-foot setback, they could exist in the orange and yellow area. And with a 250-foot setback, they could exist in the red, orange, and yellow. And so this slide right here shows the 250-foot setback where it can exist in all the colors. This next one is the 500-foot setback. The 250-foot parcels don't become eligible anymore, and we only have 500, 1,000. And the yellow right there, that's the 1,000-foot setback. So that's why that percentage is actually so small. And if we look at it a little closer, like I said, we didn't actually filter this that closely. It actually has water bodies like the Lake Wildwood as a selected parcel. So there's no way you can put a cell tower in the middle of Lake Wildwood. So we can do that again. This is Grass Valley in Nevada City. There's a 250-foot. We jump up to 500. I'll toggle it real fast. All those red opportunities go away. Do it one more time. Jump into the 1,000-foot setback, and then all the orange goes away, where we only have those yellow opportunities with a 1,000-foot setback. This is the last one, guys. So 250-foot setback, all three colors, 500-foot setback, yellow and orange, and 1,000-foot setback. Those are really the only locations where you could do that with a large setback like that. So that is the summary of these potential modifications we're looking into. I'd love to hear all of your comments on there, different thoughts on those modifications, and also your own thoughts on the current ordinance and things that could change in a way that would be satisfactory to you all. Once we hear those comments, we'll take them into consideration and into account while we're drafting the ordinance. After that ordinance is drafted, we can start what would normally be the first public review comment period, where it's going to be circulated for 30 days. You guys can comment again, or we can, include other people's comments. Then it will go to Planning Commission. Planning Commission will review it, make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. We do another staff report, another public notice. You can comment again, and then it will go to the Board of Supervisors for that final determination. So my email address is on the screen. If there's any comments you want to send over to me to get them in the formal record, please do so. I'm going to leave this up on the screen while we start this public comment period. And, glad you all came out here, and we're looking forward to your comments. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you. And we want to make sure we have the maximum amount of time to hear you speak. But if there's any clarifying questions before you speak, we could have a few minutes for a clarifying question. Yes, let me get to you so that we can hear you. Oh, but for YouTube, because there are folks listening at home. So I'm going to come to you.
Thank you. Will these slides be available? And if so, when?
Okay, I'm going to hand this off to Brian, get my exercise tonight.
Yes, we can make those available. We'll post them on our website, and they'll be under probably our current projects, and there'll be cell tower ordinance amendments. They're not there yet, but we can make sure that they're available on mynevadacounty.com or .gov, sorry.
All right, thank you. And we have another clarifying question. And then one more.
David, Cindy Sage. Did I understand you to say that for a smaller tower, there may be a lower level of review and processing? And if so, what is your definition of a smaller tower?
We have another mic.
Oh, good. We have another one. Could you stand up, David?
Yeah. So, you know, we are very early in the development phase of that. Hasn't been formally defined yet. One idea of it would be small tower, like small wireless facilities that would be like installed along a telephone pole or something like that to facilitate the county's broadband efforts. Another idea would be towers less than 100 feet in height. Those could potentially be administratively reviewed. So, you know, but we need to take all these comments into consideration while drafting this ordinance.
Okay, maybe another one or two. We're going to have David repeat that so everybody can hear.
Yeah, so we are early into the development of the ordinance, and so we would potentially be looking at small wireless facilities that would be exempt or towers less than 100 feet in height.
Okay, thank you. And then I'm going to question here and a question there, and then I want to make sure we reserve enough time for comments.
I saw the map that showed Nevada County with the 1,000-foot setback, but I didn't see any others for the whole county. Did you have that, and will it be available on the website?
Yeah, I can skip back to it. The reason it wasn't shown with the whole county is because it gets very difficult to accurately show that information because it creates a very clustered map. So there's the whole county, but it was more of just for a easier to demonstrate that information by showing the zoomed in population centers.
Okay, I'm going to take two more questions, and then I want to make sure we hear from you. But I heard a question there and a question here.
Yes, you had mentioned that there's going to be pre and post testing for the radio frequencies being within the federal guidelines, blah, blah, blah. Who is going to be doing that testing? The contractor, the owner, the county? Who do we believe?
We would likely be looking towards some third-party engineering firm, so, someone that's a registered electrical engineer in California, you know, providing that third-party certification. It would likely be whatever FCC is accepting because they have to send those certifications to FCC anyways, but currently the county isn't receiving those installation certifications. Yes,
and can we just make sure that people on YouTube, so that clarification was, it would be who's basically paying, is that what you're saying? Okay, and if you could answer that, David.
Yes, so it would be the responsibility of the applicant to provide those certifications. Correct.
Okay, we have one more question here, and then we're going to get to hear from you.
Thank you. Your message said that you were going to be looking to extend notifications from, I think you said 250 or 500 to 1,000 feet so that people could be more active. Yet you show that the towers have a range of, what, 1.5 miles? So why wouldn't you be extending the notice to people within the range of that towers at 1.5 miles if you want to have all the people involved?
You know, that's a good point. It's definitely something we'll consider. A lot of those notification limits are chosen fairly arbitrarily, and 1,000 sounds like a pretty good number. The other thing with it is it becomes pretty bulky once you start to do those massive distributions and you end up sending out 1,000 notices or more. But it's definitely something we can look into, is increasing it beyond 1,000.
Okay, and I know you probably have more questions, but you can email David, and there are the little email slips back there. David's going to get that back on the slide with your email, and so you can get more answers. I want to just get a sense, does everybody want to speak, or do we have, so I want to know how many minutes to give everybody. Okay, so I'm going to go with that's about 20 people. So I think we can go with the 3 minutes. If you don't take your whole 3 minutes, that's great, because we have 60 minutes for comment. We do want everybody to be heard. And just a reminder, you can email. I know a lot of you had prepared comments. So if you run out of time, or if you think about something afterwards, you can email that, and that'll be part of the public record. Yes, Supervisor Swathart.
I just want to say, if your comment is a question, ask the question. If we have enough time at the end, we will try and go back and answer the questions, because I know that a lot of this isn't just you making comments. I have a feeling that there's a lot more questions out there. So feel free in your couple minutes that you have. If you have a question, ask it. We will be recording the questions. If you don't get that question answered tonight, we will work on getting it to you. But if we have time at the end, depending upon how talky everybody is tonight, we will try and answer as many of the questions tonight that we can, just because I don't want to cut anybody off if you have questions, because that's the point of this, is interactive. You don't have that same interaction at a planning commission meeting or at a board of supervisors, because you get your 3 minutes and maybe we answer your questions at the end and maybe we don't. You just never know. So I just want everybody to feel free to speak what they need to speak, whether that's a statement or a question.
Thank you, Supervisor. So what we'd like to do is maybe not have any more than 5 people at a time lined up here, but we will start the clock at 3 minutes, and then we ask that you do end at 3 minutes so the next person can be heard, and we'll continue that for 60 minutes.
Well, speaking of public notice, was just mentioned, it's the bedrock of due process, community engagement, and government accountability. Imagine waking up to find a cell tower being installed across the street from your home with no prior warning, no input, and no chance to object. That's not just undemocratic, it's unacceptable. Requiring robust public notice ensures that the residents are informed well in advance of any proposed wireless facility. It gives people time to ask questions, to voice concerns, and to present evidence. Notice must include door-to-door flyers, signage at the proposed site, and notice in local newspapers and online platforms. And it must be provided to neighbors, not just within 300 feet, but at a meaningful distance that reflects the far-reaching impacts of these installations. Even 1,000 feet may not suffice to include property owners in the same vicinity who happen to be a little further away but will still be impacted. Transparent, timely notice is a cornerstone of good governance, a non-negotiable element of any legitimate wireless ordinance. Do you want to?
Renette, you requested that the speakers...
It's up there.
It's right up here. Okay, but thank you, because I didn't point that out to our first speaker, so that's good to point out.
Hello,
My name is Sean. I live in District 1 off 174. And as it happens, we have a cell tower that abuts our property on the lower corner, which is fine, because without it, we would have no internet. So we use the hotspot. But I brought props to demonstrate one of the environmental concerns that I would like people to take into account when writing our ordinance. So we see these cell towers that look like Christmas trees. They are not Christmas trees. They are full of plastic debris. This is what I picked up from my property, and I did not go scouring on the other 4 properties or around the cell tower where there is a literal debris field. And by the way, in strong wind events, these smaller branches in the bag here make it all the way up to the house. They're traveling hundreds of feet further than that. I didn't measure, but I've took pictures showing where I found one in correspondence to the cell tower. So my request is, we all know it's a cell tower. Let's not decorate them like fake Christmas trees. They look terrible anyway. By the time these branches come down to my property, they're all sun-bleached. And the thing is, once you pick up the larger section, it leaves all the little plastic pieces, smaller and smaller plastic pieces. You would need to use, tweezers to get all of those out of the environment. So either make the companies clean it up, or charge the companies so the county can clean them up, or do like a river cleanup thing, but for cell towers. Because the more cell towers we add, the more plastic debris that we're allowing these multi-billion-dollar corporations put into our community and on our property. I think if we did a cell tower cleanup, we would be shocked by the dumpsters that we filled up with these fiberglass branches, metal, plastic, all of this garbage. Pollution is what it is, pollution. So that's my ask. Let's not make them look like Christmas trees. They look terrible anyway. We all know they're not trees. We're not fooled, the birds aren't fooled, nature's not fooled, and all we are doing is polluting the environment with plastic detritus. Thank you.
Maureen Graber, Banner Mountain, District 1. I have 2 points to make. My first point is bait and switch. That's why the Board of Supervisors is subject to neighborhood outcry when a new cell tower is proposed. Homeownership is the most significant asset in your constituents' investment portfolio. When I purchased my home on Banner Mountain, I did my due diligence. I checked area property values, local amenities, social media sites, and crime statistics. I drove through the neighborhood repeatedly looking for pride of ownership. I was satisfied that my investment was sound. Studies confirm that cell towers negatively impact property values. The National Business Post wrote that cell towers, 5G, and electric substations near homes can drop property values by as much as 20%. And a survey conducted by the National Institute of Science Law Public Policy reveals that 94% of people surveyed would not buy or rent a home next to a cell tower. I realize that the Board of Supervisors has placed broadband services as one of its core objectives, but to whose benefit and to whose loss? The Telecommunications Act of 1996, Section 704 reads, "Nothing in the act shall limit or affect the authority of a state or local government or instrumentality thereof over decisions regarding the placement, construction, and modification of personal wireless service. There is an exception to health or environmental concerns if the RFE complies with regulations. However, aesthetics and diminished property values are not accepted. Therefore, in consideration of all constituents, I request updated cell tower ordinance include 1. Due to diminished property value and impact on neighborhood aesthetics, a new cell tower cannot be added to a neighborhood that already hosts a cell tower within a 5-mile radius. 2. New cell towers must be placed into the near vicinity of those it proposes to serve who do not currently have service. 3. The Planning Department assess broadband service during new development applications process so that new cell towers are identified prior to buyers considering purchasing real estate in that area. 4, new cell towers erected to serve U.S. Forest Service land or Bureau of Land Management land are placed within those land areas. And 5, in the event one landowner elects to negotiate a cellular tower on his or her property without the support of the neighborhood, the lease income must be split 30-70 between the landowner and the neighborhood to address neighborhood impact. These funds can support a Firewise community, a neighborhood watch community, an HOA, or similar neighborhood organization. We deserve to have our nice ridgeline viewpoints and scenic views. We're known for our natural beauty. It's very different from a cityscape. Wireless towers and faux trees can dominate the skyline and permanently alter our scientific views. Once a tower goes up on a ridgeline or bluff, the entire vista changes for residents and visitors alike. Tourism, quality of life, and rural charm all depend on preserving our visual environment. That's why scenic protections must be baked into any wireless ordinance. We shouldn't prohibit towers from being placed on ridgelines or in line of sight of parks, trails, or public viewpoints. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Partridge. I live in District 1, about 4 miles from here. Thank you, Supervisor, for hosting this and for giving us an overview. I've read the ordinance. I don't have anything specific to point out. Some folks have done far better homework than me, but I will submit it. I'm here to speak about a safety issue, which to me is the big issue for a lot of my neighborhood. And I know this is a divisive subject, and there's a lot of competing priorities. But as soon as you head up Coyote Road to my house, 4 miles from here, I lose cell phone coverage. And in the 7 years I've been here, I could recount 4 or 5 different accidents with my neighbors or on North Bloomfield Road that were life or death. I grew up at a time, like many of you in this room, where we got answering machines for our home phones. And that was a big step. And then we got voicemail. And then we got these devices that we carry around and we take for granted for those of us who live in places where if we have a flat tire on the road or a head-on collision, we can use it. Me and my neighbors can't do that. So when the teenager got hit on a road bike coming around the curve on Cooper Road last year, no one could make a call. They had to run to the closest house where hopefully someone was home and get the emergency vehicle, which eventually brought a life flight helicopter to get him out of there. Or the 25-year-old who's coming around the bend on North Bloomfield and had a seizure and went into the ditch unconscious. And no one could make a call until they drove to a house to find a landline. And lastly, on a personal note, on my property, where I do enjoy having Starlink, I don't like to pay for it to the person who gets the money, but that's another subject, is when I leave my front door on my IP network, I don't have cell phone coverage. So I don't go on my property to cut the yard or to do tree work without a whistle around my neck, so that if I have a heart attack or something happens to me, I can blow it, and hopefully my husband or a neighbor can come help me. So safety to me, balancing all of these other priorities, I think needs to be taken into account. The last one is Snowmageddon. For 2 years in a row, we went 14 days each without any coverage. Neighbors stuck in their homes with no way to call out, and now the CPUC is going to take away landlines for those neighbors. We have to have a solution. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Dr. Michael Waring. I live just around the way. Thank you to the previous speakers, very organized. I would echo the previous speakers' words about being first on the scene of a car accident. I've been first on the scene where it was two cars and 10 victims, and there was no cell service, and a helicopter was needed to be called out. And boy, did that stink having no cell service there. My whole thing locally has been more internet access, and I may have emailed some of you in this room about more internet access and fiber and better broadband outreach, and I know that's one of the priorities for the county, the city, the state. There are folks who are able to get different, T-Mobile hotspots or some other kind of hotspot for their home, and maybe their previous internet was only 3 to 5 megabits per second down, and now with their hotspot they can get 50 to 60 over the air, which is incredible. If you have smarter broadband, they probably cap out at 25 down, 12 up. So I had just a couple questions to insert. The presenter mentioned that the current ordinance that's being revised is 20 years old. One of my questions is, do we need to talk about a timeline for when the new thing gets renewed? Should it be another 20 years? Should it be maybe 10 years, 5 years? I guess we can discuss that. As the previous speaker brought up the Snowmageddon, I wonder if it could be appropriate for our community, for our county, to have some words put in about the durability in storms or severe weather events. Could these towers could they be required to have a certain amount of backup power? Maybe that type of thing is already written in and I just haven't done my homework. Thank you for the maps. That's really helpful. I think that's cool to watch the locations filter out. It does demonstrate a tricky balance that's baked into this, that people generally want better connectivity, but they also magically want invisible towers that are also not near their homes. So hard to balance that. I saw the numbers there, sir, that were the setback of 250, 500, 1,000. So my next question is there any engineering reason that other numbers couldn't be applied as the filter, like maybe 300 feet or 400 feet or 750? So I just saw 250, 500, 1,000. I wondered maybe more parcels could open with different radii. That's it.
My name is Cindy Sage, and I live down in South County. David, it would be great if you could bring up slide 18 while I talk, if that's possible. I've submitted a letter, and it basically relates to what I analyzed for the area down where I live, using the 1,000-foot setback. And I think the takeaway, rather than my reading you that letter where I analyzed how many there are, how many parcels, and did this really work, in that region there are more than 50 qualifying parcels with a 1,000-foot setback. That's far more parcels than would be needed for adequate coverage in the foreseeable future, because it's an area of low density, and it probably will remain that way looking at the general plan and the zoning. I think that you need to consider that one size doesn't fit all. I like the idea of setbacks. I commend you, the county, for doing the work. This is good work. However, the analysis, I think, is flawed, and I think you need to reconsider it. Because where you have an area like South County, where you have many, many, many more than you need of parcels that have a 1,000-foot setback possibility, choose that setback for these areas as a first overlay. I realize that when you get down to really high-density community areas, you're going to have a lot more difficulty doing setbacks at all, but I encourage you to try. And beyond that, I'm going to go to a list of things that came up since I wrote this letter. First of all, I really think that you need to put out an administrative draft for the public to review for 2 or 3 weeks prior to it going to any public hearing. Now, maybe you said that, maybe it was included in what you said, but I didn't hear it. It isn't reasonable for people to go through what will be a very long and detailed draft that will be in part technical and get a good answer together. So please consider that review period. Secondly, you answered my question about when would you think about using an administrative development permit process. Don't fool us by saying, well, oh, we'd only do that for the smaller towers and small cells. There aren't going to be many projects over 100 feet on towers, and small cells are not small. This is not a small project. Taken cumulatively, the entire network for 5G is massive, and it really needs full use permit and not AD permit processing. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Denise Reynolds from District 3. Denise Spielberg. My wrong last name. So I would request that all cell towers, regardless of height, are required to have a 400-foot setback at least, and that conditional use permits are required, because this would require residents to be notified. And they should be notified of any size towers going up within 1,000 feet of the property. And these people should all have the opportunity to be involved in the process. In addition, I want to speak to one of the main concerns regarding the idea that we need more cell towers to address communications during emergencies. I believe this is a misconception. Of course, with exceptions like the resident mentioned who was out off of a Coyote. I live in an area where I get 1 or 2 bars of service, and after the power goes out, I can reach websites, get maps, use the watch duty and flight radar apps. That is, until power has been down for 3 or 4 hours. Then service drops because the cell tower backup generator died. I have my own generator and can use my cable internet access until the generator at our local cable utility cabinet dies as well. The main issue during emergencies, I don't believe, is coverage, it's power. During one of the Bay Area fires a few years ago, cell service went down, not only because they lacked towers, or not because they lacked towers, but because they lost power. People couldn't get updates, didn't know which way to escape, or how to avoid the worst areas. Building more towers won't fix this if they all go dark when disaster strikes. Instead, we need to require cell and internet companies to equip towers with automatic emergency generators, and mandate crews to monitor them during crises. It's simple. No power, no service, however many towers we have. So I ask you to please prioritize resilience over expansion.
Hi, my name's Johanna Finney. I live pretty much in the neighborhood that our resident off Coyote does in Cooper. And I really want to thank planning, staff, and our board for having this meeting. Very valuable. We appreciate it. The following may sound technical to some, but it's incredibly important regarding administrative versus procedural rights. Procedural rights guarantee community members can participate in the decision-making process through public hearings, appeals, and open records. Administrative approvals, on the other hand, allow wireless permits to be rubber-stamped behind closed doors sometimes, and sometimes by a single staff member. When decisions are made administratively, the public is often left out entirely. No hearing, no notice, no transparency. That's unacceptable when it comes to this subject. A tower 99 feet and below must still have a conditional use permit so we can enjoy that public process. A good ordinance requires that all new wireless applications undergo full procedural review, including a public hearing and the right to appeal. This gives residents a voice, ensures accountability, and prevents abuse of power. Wireless infrastructure affects every aspect of our lives: health, property, environment, and safety. We deserve a seat at the table. The public also deserves transparency when it comes to the conversations staff is having with telecom representatives. Are they sharing their suggestions and requests with you? That's my question. The public needs to see that. Are they influencing the updates to this draft? Make it known. I provided examples of strong ordinance at the board's workshop in January. Those legally effective and approved ordinances from California and other states are public record. I am asking that you make public whatever industry is sending to you. Regarding planning commissioners as the hearing body, from my experience at dozens of cell tower hearings in Oakland in front of the planning commissioners who were the hearing board, they were in way over their head. They did not know zoning code, nor did they work directly within the government. We need our boards to understand the nuance, the legality, the codes, the language that's being heard and used. I request that you keep it within the zoning department, the hearing board. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Renette Senham, former two-time mayor and city council member of Nevada City. And thank you very much for this opportunity and for being willing to be here today. I would like to talk about why a safe wireless ordinance is not just important, but essential for Nevada County. Wireless technology is expanding rapidly. Some of us are glad about this and others are hesitant. Wherever you stand, it is important to recognize that without a strong ordinance in place, this growth can come at a high cost to public health, safety, and the environment. A safe wireless ordinance puts guardrails on this expansion and makes sure that all local laws, due process, fire, and safety codes, and other considerations are followed when it comes to the question on where, how, and under what conditions wireless facilities like cell towers and antennas can be installed. Without an ordinance that prioritizes a local plan and our overall safety and well-being, we risk having towers too close to homes, schools, playgrounds, hospitals, places where vulnerable populations live and work, and where things like fire safety, property values, aesthetics, and environmental protections matter. Also, we know you cannot regulate on the basis of these, and we are not asking you to, but just for public information, there are established health risks of exposure to electromagnetic radiation emitted by cell towers, especially for children's health and development. We know this for a fact. A strong ordinance empowers local decision makers, provides transparency for residents, and puts the burden of proof on wireless companies, not the community. It's our legal and moral obligation to protect our community and our residents, especially when state and federal agencies have failed to update safety standards for cell towers in decades. In short, this is about local control. A safe wireless ordinance is not about opposing technology or connectivity. It is about your constituents' say in the kind of future we want in Nevada County. I recommend the hearing body be unelected residents who are comprised of different fields of expertise. This is absolutely crucial to fully understand and to explain to our elected officials what these ordinances really mean. Require all planning commissioners and county supervisors watch this recording. A telecom ordinance is highly technical and like Greek to many. They need to understand what is truly at stake, and they need to understand the technicality of what they're voting on. And small wirelesses are not small, and 99 feet is not short. And small cells and 99-foot towers around our whole entire county should not ever be a CUP conditional. It cannot be over the counter. You absolutely must have transparency as well as the community's involvement. Thank you very much.
I'm Louise Jones. I live at the very edge of District 1 at Lightning Tree. And I'm here to talk about the importance of the minimum setback distance. We know what that is. That's the buffer zone between the wireless facility and the home, school, workplace, or rural property. This distance matters. Why is that? Because inadequate setback distances threaten public safety. Design and construction defects are more common than people realize and can cause injuries and property damage. Cell towers, in particular, can and do collapse in natural disasters. In our arid environment, they have been known to start wildfires like the 2020 Silverado fire. Setbacks protect peace of mind, property values, and rural character, as well as the beautiful natural environment. Setbacks also account for future desensification. What starts as one antenna can become a cluster as additional carriers add onto an existing tower. It's worth noting that the electromagnetic field exposure, known as EMF, drops dramatically with distance. Distance helps protect our most vulnerable children, pregnant women, and the elderly from 24/7 exposure. Small wild animals such as honeybees, butterflies, birds, small brown bats are extremely vulnerable to EMF. Over the years, with increasing EMF, and that's satellite, that's wide area networks, and cell towers, and it only increases over time. I have noticed a great decline in flying insects and small brown bats at my home. Today, I hardly even see a small brown bat. Nevada County must adopt a meaningful minimum setback. 500 feet is the bare minimum, but not enough. 1,640 feet is more protective and aligned with precautionary principles. Setbacks aren't just technical, they're a matter of human health and safety.
Good evening. My name is Laura McClary. I live in Grass Valley, and I bought this a few years ago because I worked across from the tower that's on Golden Gate Terrace in a 2-story building next to Voles Brothers, and I was just curious. So downstairs, it was one reading, and I walked it upstairs, and it did go up because the tower, the height of the tower in the building, and so just for fun, I walked it out up the stairs here, and it did go up. But then when I came in the room here, it's pretty high, just FYI. But so I was at the hearing for the Dog Bar Road cell tower, and I'm appreciative that 4 out of the 5, are they the Board of Supervisors did recognize safety, because they all went out and they said they did note children playing. But the one exception was Heidi Hall, who basically said that I don't know if anybody caught this, but I caught it in so many words. She said that she didn't think property values were an issue with the ugliness of these towers, because basically all properties were ugly. Yeah, and you could rewatch it. But and also the attorney for Verizon, he was up telling us how safe these towers are, and how once the greenery is applied, it beautifies them, and they're virtually you can't, distinguish. He said they're basically indistinguishable from real trees. And so, but that attorney did not disclose that he was legally blind. So there was this, I confronted him because he had this stack of legal notepads and a big giant Sharpie, and he was squinting, and he did not disclose that he was legally blind and telling us how beautiful the trees are. And then when I confronted him, he said, well, the data says. And I'm like, well, that's not what you said. You said people cannot tell. Anyway, as an attorney, he should know language is important. Anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, there's some more virtually undetectable stuff laying on the floor over here. Anyway, my name is Cheryl Heward. I am a resident lifetime for Nevada County, and I just came tonight because I wanted to learn more about this. I also have a sister-in-law and my brother who built a beautiful house on Banner, and they have to sell it. They had to sell it because she became so ill from all of the stuff that's already up there at the, you know what I'm talking about, up on top of Banner. And so they're having to find a place that she can survive in. She can't stand it up there. So I do know it affects people's health. I also wanted to mention something about power outages. You know, we wanted to keep landlines in our home because when the power went out, the landlines always worked. And AT&T wanted to get rid of them all. Fortunately, they lost that case. So it's really important that we are all able to get some kind of help, you know, like he mentioned earlier out on Coyote, that people are able to get help when they need it or to find out important information. And it's been extremely difficult to actually get a landline in our home. So, thank you.
Hello, my name's Steve Nathan. I moved to Nevada County 4 years ago from New York City. I remember during Hurricane Sandy not having power for over a week or communications, except that one day I walked behind the front desk and picked up the landline, and all of a sudden I had a dial tone. And I was able to call my family in Las Vegas and let them know that I was okay. Landlines are important. So is fiber optic. Part of the reason that we're having these conversations, if you really get to the heart of the matter, is that we don't have fiber optic cable here. All those small residential areas could have fiber optic cable. We could be putting cell phones in roadways so that there's ways to travel that way and not need those monstrosities designed to look like Christmas trees. There are ways for us to handle this, and what we do here and now is going to determine how we go forward. Do we want to have cell towers everywhere? And nobody's mentioned, you mentioned the bees and all the small animals. What about horses and cattle? And what about the impact on them? Who's speaking for them? And so this is something that really requires thought. Why don't we have fiber optic cable in all these residential areas? And what's it going to take for us to get it? And what does it mean to be a public utility, to be able to provide services so that in emergencies, our citizens have the services that those utilities say they provide? Thank you.
Good evening. Concerning the small cell rollout, a strong ordinance must protect the public with respect to small cell antenna installations on light, telephone, and other poles in the public right-of-way. It has been proven that a small cell at 25 feet distance from a home produces the same effects RF as a major macro cell at 600 feet distance from the same home at ground level. Small cell permits and co-locations do not require a CUP and will have cursory administrative processing. Dozens of applications can be submitted every 30 days, ensuring the impossibility of any real analysis. It ensures small cell rollout will occur with minimal and inadequate public input or environmental public health and safety assessments. The county has the legal authority to maintain local control over where, when, and how such new 5G antennas could be placed. Neither the county officials nor the public should be fooled or frightened into thinking that we no longer have that control. Recommendations for small cells should be the same as the macro cells, including but not limited to the following. 1, siting needs the same tiered approach. 2, notification requirements to neighbors. 3, explicit findings to approve permits that ensure safety of persons and property. 4, applications in public right-of-ways are equal to those on public and private leases and sites. 5, and small cells should be identifiable in order for the ADA provisions and avoidance. Thank you.
I'm Lorraine Webb is my name. I live just about 4 minutes down the road here. The thing we all have in common is that we love this place. And I'm really hoping neighbors will start talking to neighbors again. The censorship has been really disheartening, and the division. So in our quest for absolute safety, I just want to talk about the trade-off for that idea, because I don't think it needs to be a trade-off with our place that we love, with the health and well-being of the place that we love and with our neighbors. I caretake my now 96-year-old mother for the last 11 years. She had some pretty horrific symptoms until we took away the smart meter that was outside her bedroom that PG&E had surreptitiously installed. She's very well now. There's a local naturalist named David Lucas, who is very revered. He's also an ornithologist, a biologist. And his recent piece on migratory patterns of our birds talks about their susceptibility and the minutely understood now dependency on electromagnetic fields and what we're calling, what's being ascribed to bird flu, you know. Let's think about it. Let's look at it. Let's look at it closely. I make sure I've modified that statement from the NRA, you know. They'll take my landline away. They'll pry it out of my cold dead fingers, right? So, yeah, with my mother, with her needs, we definitely need. My heart goes out to the people who can't get first responders, whom I respect and am so grateful to when they need them. We do need the connectivity. Fiber optics is a very viable alternative to these monstrosities because, you know, the line of vision, the trees that have been lost for this line of vision bullshit, and the birds, you know, my dog. There were a series of dogs that were very sick at a certain point, and we really did look at the electromagnetic influence. So please take it into consideration and talk to your neighbors. One last thing. What about liability issues?
I understand the county is balancing I understand that the county is balancing connection and coverage with the safety of our people. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you. So I have a few things. The current towers use relatively new technology, which is newer than the 1996 704 FCC section when it was written. And so I was wondering if there was any proactive plan done from you guys to understand the concerns that have been brought up here with the 5G or the other technologies that are used in wireless. And basically, if the FCC plans do get updated, as they should as well, how you would do that if you have all of these towers spread around. And in addition to what the last citizen said, what's your plan for collecting any harm done? So if people are, if animals are dying or hurting and people, how can we collect all that information so we can see if there's a systemic problem that's happening? Let me see. So you said that it seems like these towers, I agree with the fiber optics, that seems like a pretty good plan, but the towers that you're talking about sounds like they might have a 1.5 mile coverage. So is the grand plan to have a tower every 1.5 miles so that everybody gets connection? So that's one question. And then in terms of backdoor technology, like if we're using foreign hardware, foreign software, is there any concern with I know there's certain organizations like statearmor.org that's working with counties and states to make sure that we're not just setting up this access to foreign adversaries through our technology. And then what was he saying? There's also some concerns regarding satellite connections and just some of the antennas that are set up for them. Just, I'm not sure if you thought about that in terms of where their placement is around the children. I think daycares and schools. Not sure if you guys have considered that as well. And if you do proceed, or it sounds like you will, but how about will there be a website that will have every tower and that we could just sign up so that we could be notified for as the towers they're coming up, so that it doesn't rely on just people who are just 250 or 1,000 feet away. And we can really start to see how our county is changing and the big picture, right? And so, I'll just finish by saying, please protect our children. Please protect our pregnant women and the future, right? Because I agree that I think everyone here loves our county and our people. And so thank you for doing what you can to balance everything. Thank you.
Good evening, Bill Wright. I'm a man who lives on the land in the southern part of our county. The construction of this cell tower ordinance must include clear personal liability for any and all harm, injury, and/or damage to people and/or property from any project that it permits. It goes without saying that without such liability, all beings in harm's way from this technology that includes so many unknown risks are left without recourse, which is immoral, and lawfully renders this or any ordinance void. That's what I basically wanted to say. I also want to speak to the nature of how this evening's discourse started off with the Fed being this overarching, power that our hands are tied at the county level. And I understand that as a contract. So the county has contracted with the feds, and the terms of any contract can be negotiated. And so what I would like to add in is that the inception of the FCC rules limited any discussion at the county level to thermal effects only. And it's known in other countries, France and Switzerland and other European countries, that thermal effects are not the only issue. And that by the time you have thermal effects in your physiology, or if an animal does, or who knows what's happening in the tissues of beings in nature, by the time you have thermal effects, you're pretty hosed. And it's been established in the scientific body of research. And so to me, it's also immoral to not include that damage that's occurring in advance of thermal effects. So I, for one, sincerely would admonish and cheerlead any efforts on the county level to actually renegotiate those terms of a contract with the Fed, because it's a contract. Why do we have to be beholden to that contract? Thank you.
Good evening. I want to start off by thanking the county. I think it's to have a meeting like this, and then the first cut was really nice, all these things you're considering and wanting to weigh. I would just hope, I'm one of those, have a cell phone, can't use it to make calls, but I think we need the cell towers. And I would hope any decision would be thoughtful and based on third-party, peer-reviewed science, whatever that might be. And if these effects are real, based on studies which have gone on for many years, that has to be taken into consideration. But as we all know, there's lots of people that claim to do research that might not truly be research. And it's not to put down what I've heard tonight, but whatever the third-party independent studies say, we should use that information. And we should modify that if new studies come up with something new. We need a setback. You propose nicely some options, but as you go further back, the utility of having the tower goes down to where, why even build it? So that has to be a consideration going into a community. If a community only needs a 1,000-foot setback, as was mentioned earlier, great, maybe that's what we do. If we need a closer setback and it's not going to, through peer-reviewed science, cause health problems in order to be effective, that's what we should do. I personally would like to see the towers decorated to somehow not be as noticeable, but as one gentleman said, if that stuff's going to fall down, then maybe we need different stuff, and the ordinance, if we have the power to require the companies to maintain the stuff so it doesn't fall down and to pick up if it does. That's my 2 cents. And, you know, welcome the process for the meeting, and I'm sure there'll be more discussion on it. Thanks.
Good evening. Some of you may have met me before. Yvonne Pinto, I'm with Verizon Wireless. And I'm not going to take up a lot of time. I'm just going to say I'm here to answer any questions you might have. We did have an informational presentation regarding cell towers in, I think it was January 14th, if I remember correctly. And we'll be happy to put on that type of presentation again to answer questions, bring in EME experts, anything that would help the community wrap their head around what is being proposed here regarding the setbacks, things of that nature. We'll be happy to bring in the experts again and have them do a presentation should you want one. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Phelan, and I was going to be talking about the importance of fall zones and setbacks, but I feel like that's been covered really well. So I would just like to share a little bit about my experience. I helped spearhead the appeal for the dog bar cell phone tower. And first of all, I just want to say I really appreciate the opportunity that we can even be here, be talking about this, and be working towards a safer ordinance. I think that some of the misconception has been that the battle is between cell towers versus no cell towers. And at least for me personally, the main priority is safety. I know firsthand what it's like to live off of North Bloomfield Road and have a FEMA level snowstorm disaster declared and not have power for 7 weeks. I lived on Blue Tent School Road for almost 7 years. And so I completely understand the need for cell service and emergency calling. But it's also important that these towers go in safe locations that don't hurt people, that don't hurt families. So there does need to be a balance. And I appreciate that we can be here tonight talking about that, because having to jump through the hoops I had to jump through to protect my neighborhood, to protect this community, that we can even be having this conversation. I don't want anyone else to experience that again. It was awful. I felt like every kind of dirty trick that could be played in the book by this billion-dollar corporation was played, and by some miracle we're here being able to talk about this to create safe ordinances for this community. I care about all of you. I do. I care about this community. I care about our people, and we do need cell towers for cell service, but we also need them to go in safe locations that don't destroy people's property values, that don't put children at risk. I know that we can't legally fight these yet based on health, but other countries have proven and shown that a minimum of 1,600 feet should be the setback, that within that zone, cancer can increase tenfold in the first year. And if that's true, that's horrifying statistic. And why would we even be taking that risk? And so it really is a balance of safety of, yes, we need these, but they need to be in safe locations for the protection of our community, for children, for everyone. So just know that I care about you guys, and I don't want anyone to go through what I went through. So I hope that with these meetings, we can craft safe ordinances where this doesn't happen to people again, where they're placed in locations that help us and that they don't hurt us. Thank you.
Thank you. And I see we have 5 people up there, so that will be our last 5 people to fit into our 60 minutes. So go ahead. And I don't know, some of them may be speaking together.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Ramirez, and I'm going to be sharing my 3 minutes with my son, DJ. DJ, do you want to start first?
No.
All right, I'll get us started. So we acknowledge that there are a lot of things for you to balance in making these decisions on these ordinances, but I do believe that it is the responsibility of the county to find that balance in what all of us are expressing here tonight. We live up on Red Dog, and we are facing the real possibility of having a cell phone tower built in the parcel next to our home. I share that home with my 3 children who are here tonight. DJ is one of them. Emma and Jamie is in the audience. And when my husband and I chose to move here, we searched for a home for months, and we wanted to find the perfect place to be able to raise our children. And we thought that we found that until one of our neighbors decided that he wanted to use his property to build a cell phone tower. And now we, as a family, are facing the real-life consequences of having a neighbor make that choice. One of the things I'd like to touch on especially is the devaluation of our property. So you can ask any real estate agent, cell phone towers devalue the nearby properties. We will be able to see this tower from our living room window. And while I do acknowledge there is a need for cell phone towers, I don't think that anyone in this room wants to be able to look at it from their couch, where they sit with their children. If I had known that this was something we would face in the future, I would have never purchased the house that we did. And it is already difficult to buy a home, especially as a young family. We're 2 full-time working people to support our family. Since moving here, our fire insurance has doubled, and now we're facing this additional devaluation to our property because of a cell phone tower. The reasons are clear. There's health concerns like people have talked about, visual blight, noise from backup generators, the loss of peace and quiet, the loss of tranquility, which is what our home is. When we all go home tonight after a difficult meeting like this, we're going to our home with the people that we love, and we want that to be a place of tranquility, and it's not if you're looking at a cell phone tower through your window. And so we are asking the county to really consider ordinances, setbacks that protect us as much as possible, that strike that balance of what your citizens are expressing in their concerns with the predatory nature of the telecom companies. So thank you for your time tonight. Okay. Our time is up, though, guys. Sorry.
Hi, everyone. I don't want to take up too much time, and I was not planning on saying something, but I felt compelled to put my voice out there. And I know so much has already been said, I don't want to repeat, but I remember just being a little girl before I even knew what a cell phone tower was and seeing the ones disguised as trees along the road, and no way does it look like a tree. And it is a huge eyesore, and it's just very creepy to look at, I would say. So I really don't think that that is a good reason. Sorry. As far as the safety concerns of it, there have been many times when science has said something is safe and it later is discovered that it's not. So I would just like people to remember that. And I also want to say that I think anyone who is living within the neighborhood of the cell tower should 100% have a say in it going up or not. That's all. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Morgan, and this is my niece,
Emma.
So we wanted to talk about a strong wireless ordinance and that it should have 4 key things. The first is to protect public health and safety by setting large setbacks from homes, schools, and critical infrastructure. The second is to mandate transparency and public notice so no facility is approved in secret. Third is to enforce design standards that preserve the county's character and scenic views. Fourth, include a robust application review process requiring independent third-party reviews of technical claims, not just taking industry at their word. Other elements include fall zone analysis, fire risk evaluation, co-location limits, and denying permits when safer alternatives exist. The strongest ordinances we've seen, like those in Mill Valley and Encinitas, are community-driven, legally defensible, and uncompromising when it comes to safety. This is about setting a legal foundation that can stand up to industry pressure and put people before profit. The proposal to exempt small cell wireless facilities and other eligible facilities from permitting requirements could give industry carte blanche to overrun our county with unsightly small cells that can take up to 28 cubic feet of space. This is unacceptable.
I'm Jeff Milo. I'm just going to speak really briefly, and then my wife Janet will talk. This Red Dog proposed cell phone tower, I've been involved in the community discussion with that, and I've also talked to the county about it. And still not close enough? I've also talked to the county about it and talked to excuse me, CAL FIRE, talked to them about it. I've talked to the fire district about it. And I see a whole bunch of holes in what's being done right now with the cell towers. I personally have a background in EE, so I'm very familiar with the technology. And I'm kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. Anyway, so I know a lot about this stuff. And one of the issues I see is the setbacks for fire seem to be the same thing they use for like a house. And it's a totally different situation. I mean, yeah, a cell tower could be subject to a forest fire coming towards it, but you can also have a cell tower cause a fire. And if you want to see a really good video of what a cell tower fire looks like, there was one in Sacramento in 2023, and you can just do a search for it. It was on the local KCRA station in Sacramento, and it's a huge fire. And they can't put the thing out right away because they have to turn off the utility service to it. You can't spray water on something that has electricity and high voltage. So you really, and these towers are extremely tall. It could be 150 feet tall. So I'm looking at the tower that's going to be 700 feet from the upstairs bedroom that my grandkids will sleep in. And I don't understand how that could be proposed and even considered because of just the EMI part of it. But on top of that, in the middle of the night, that equipment catches on fire. It's up near the crowns of the trees, and if it's a bad summer where everything's dry, boom, that's traveling through the canopies of the trees 700 feet away from us. So and the answers I got from the CAL FIRE and from the local fire people were inadequate. I finally ended up going to the department, I think it was the Department of Forestry or something at the state level, and you have to send a letter in. There's something wrong there. We should have more local control of safety. Anyway.
So Janet Banner, Jeff's wife, live on Red Dog, across the street from the proposed cell tower location that Tiffany, her children, and husband have been worried about. And I totally agree with everything Jeff said. My biggest concern, so initially I wasn't concerned about EMF, I'm more concerned about the fire hazard of a cell tower in a dry location in the summer with a wind. We have spent so much money at our property and so much labor and sweat making it more fire safe. taking down trees, keeping it clean. And here goes in a 150-foot monopine.
Lots of plastics that can catch on fire.
Right? That it's known that cell towers can catch on fire. And there it is going to be in the trees with only, I think it was a 50-foot setback on the plans.
It's all ground level.
So, and here's the fire where, you know, where the antennas are up at the top and then going across the canopy. And we live across the street. So I would request that, I understand that there are issues coming down or restraints coming down from the feds in the state, but at least at the local level, if we can do something about and adding to the ordinance fire restrictions or setbacks and forcing the owners and the operators of the site to keep it to the level of fire management, fire safety that we do for our own house.
I'm used to the way restrictions go for building. Just a quick thing, is the local city has the more restrictive restrictions, then it's the county, then it's the state. And I don't see that happening with this so far, and I think it should be.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. So much good comment, good conversation. David was over here furiously taking notes on everything. I believe that he's laid out the next steps. Someone asked the question about a review period. There is a 30-day review period, so there will be a draft done by the county, by the planning department, and it will be circulated in the community. It'll be on our website. It'll be available up here if people want to look at it. So everybody will have the opportunity to look at it, and it is a draft. When you see something that comes from them, it's not the final, it's not the final document. So please look at it as a draft, make your comments based on that. There's a couple other things. The AT&T issue, so rural counties won the first round on landlines, but the AT&T is still petitioning the CPUC to remove our landlines. If you have a landline and you want to keep it, please, please, please send a note. Give us a call. We've been tracking everybody in the county who has cell phones because we are using that, or landlines. We are using that in the testimony with the CPUC. Sue Hook, the District 4 supervisor, is very, very involved with that. We do not want people to lose their landlines here. If you live in especially North San Juan, the little town of Washington, places where there's absolutely no cell service and you're not going to get cell towers because there's not enough people up there for Verizon or for the cell phone towers to want to put them up there, it's really important that we continue working to make sure that those stay. Let me finish, and I'll answer your question just offline because I know we're 1 minute over, and we like to keep things on time here. So when you talk about local control, I will tell you, I've been on the Board of Supervisors just for a little over 2 years. It is really hard. The most calls I get in this community are about Xfinity and PG&E and AT&T, and we do our best to try and work with those big companies to make sure that our citizens' interests are represented. And I will just tell you, and I don't want to whine, I don't want to make excuses, but it is really, really difficult. I represent District 3. Some of you, just a story, I think, a little bit of what we are doing to fight for our residents. About a month after I got elected, PG&E purchased a piece of property off of Old Highway 20, going towards Rough and Ready. They went in there. They do not have to get permission from the county to do a project there. The public utilities are exempt from the county regulatory process. They went in and they bulldozed the whole field of native wildflowers that have been there for hundreds of years, I'm sure. So I got so many phone calls on it. We reached out to PG&E. We actually filed a lawsuit against PG&E. We were successful in that, and we are getting a pretty large sum of money from PG&E that's going to go to the land trust for their new nature preserve that they're putting across the street. So it doesn't make it right, but I just want people to know that we are fighting for you, that we are trying to, go up against these big corporations and say we need to do what's best for our county. Again, really appreciate everybody coming out. If you have any questions, you can find any of us on the county's website, My Nevada County. I have my cell phone number on there, so please feel free, even if you don't live in my district, feel free to reach out to me. If I can't help you, I will find somebody who can. So again, thank you all so much for coming. Appreciate it.